which is why there is this interest in developing a prototype school, so that you're not having, competing, a lot of competition going on. So we're going to see some changes in terms of how the design process works. This is an interesting slide. The MSBA is being very exact and very high-level requirement in terms of the votes. So it's because what they found in their review is that some communities actually have had one vote for multiple projects. So that we're voting $50 million, but it's for project A, B, and C, and all combined. MSBA is saying no, it's got to be one project, one vote. So if we were doing a project, say capital project for a boiler, that's one project, one vote. You can't combine it with something else. So very, very strong oversight. So it's a new world, okay? Feasibility study, again, the feasibility study is not going to be, it's sort of a green light, but it's not an endorsement for a project. This is an important, okay, it's pay as you go. In the past, you got the check at the end of the project if you qualify. Here, it's pay as you go based on an agreed upon percentage up front. So that means that it really reduces the Commonwealth's interest, debt on this project, because the state is able to pay it down immediately. And so your feasibility study, your schematic design, each of the phases of construction, you're going to get that money right along. Which means that MSBA has to be very involved in the fiscal oversight of this whole process. There is now a new electronic web-based system that allows this payment. Actually, for the bachelor school project, in the final audit, Joe Tassoni and the folks from Town Hall had to receive some training on this electronic payment system and how bills and purchase orders or not purchase orders, how the bills are processed. This slide is too much fine print, but ProPay is really the name of their system. Base rate will be 31%, and then there are add-ons up to that. Again, as I said, for the bachelor school project, we're hoping that it's at least, it should be at least 50, if not a little bit higher. And some other factors that will come in here will be economic factors based on the community. There'll be points or incentive points for maintenance, agreement to build so-called green schools, which I think these new prototype designs will very much be involved with sustainable green school technology. There will be a push to, as part of this process, to look at the potential for regionalization. And this may have a factor more for in rural areas, but it may also, there will also be a push to look at ways in which other communities can regionalize their resources to build facilities. There's also going to be a push to have major renovation or additions as part of that renovation, as opposed to new construction. And up to 5 incentive points will be added for that. And we've seen that with the bachelor's school project. And again, I think the overall feeling of MSBA is not to support wholesale new construction. Here's this model school. that there will be additional points. If you choose a project, an already designed prototype model school, an off-the-shelf model, I think the intent of MSBA is to have several models for elementary, middle, and high schools that a community could take a look at and say, yes, we like that model. Let's see how it fits on our site, and then build it. And this, I think I mentioned Draken and Tewksbury, along with several other communities, have been selected to take a look at some model schools. And there are some model schools that are being identified that have already been built, particularly high schools. Littleton High School is one of them. And again, this is a way to help control costs. And if we get to this point, I think there will be some additional incentives for us. There'll be a way to sort of modify that model, I believe, but you're not going to be starting from scratch. You're not going to be designing right from the
So then you would demolish an existing building? Or is it components of a pilot, like you can choose and,
I
you know,
think
the
it
tech?
I think it could be components. The focus, as we'll see, is going to be on for example, it's not going to be on field houses, superintendent's offices, swimming pools, and other things that other communities have integrated into their projects. Notice, policies yet to be determined. Turf fields, performing arts centers, spaces in excess of any space guidelines that MSBA has set out, cable TV studios.
That's too bad, because the 21st century skills is pushing
Yeah.
Exactly.
items like that that lead to jobs.
We just, here, I noticed this slide, one of the goals for MSBA is to really take a look at the technology piece and science. So I think in the end, what you'll see here is that 21st century learning and the technology needed to do that will be incorporated here and in those model designs.
So, like, we're looking for a science one. So we could look at a pilot school and look at that piece, science
Right.
wings, and it's been designed.
Yes.
And so you almost buy that pod or that
Right.
block that's designed for that block.
Exactly.
It's an
Um,
interesting concept.
So these are some of the goals that MSBA will be designing recommendations for. I just mentioned this, vocational technical high schools have been set in a separate category. And because there's still a question as to what does the 21st century vocational technical high school look like, and what should go into their design. So there's still work that has to be done on that, and the vocational schools are looking to, there should be some report coming out in the fall. Here, regionalization. Again, one of the goals of MSBA is to look for ways for communities to regionalize. I've already mentioned project managers, and anyway, that's kind of a quick overview of where MSBA is. Just to summarize here, I plan to meet with Brad Dorr, our architect from Dorr and Whittier, and the Secondary School Building Committee in the next few weeks. And we'll start to take a look at the original statement of interest submitted on the high school and middle school. Any revisions will need to come back to the school committee. Actually, there was an interesting question on the superintendent's listserv today about any changes to that statement of interest. If you recall, when we submitted those statement of interest, I was required to certify that not only the vote of the school committee, but the vote of the Board of Selectmen. They needed to sign off on each of those statement of interest, and we needed to submit the minutes of the meeting. So the question was raised, if you change anything in the statement of interest from what you originally submitted, do you need to go back and get another vote of the school committee and the board of selectmen? And Catherine Craven, apparently in an email response said, if you change your priorities, in other words, if you decide, well, no, we're not gonna do this project, or we're no longer interested in focusing on an elementary project, we're gonna focus on a middle school project, that would require a vote. But if you're just adding to the current statement of interest, it does not require a formal vote. But in the coming weeks, I will get a definite answer from MS. I want to see that in
Yeah.
writing, because I don't want to go through this work, submit it, and then have it sent back, say we need a vote of the board of selectmen. I do think it would be highly recommended that we take a look at the membership on the secondary school building committee, and perhaps get a liaison from either the board of selectmen or the finance committee on the SB. In fact, the new composition of the school building committee is going to require that you have that kind of involvement. So, if we have a lot of work cut out in the next couple of months to update our statement of interest. So.
Questions or comments from the board? David, I guess two comments. One, we put the SSBC in hibernation, and we need to somehow revive that. We have to bring the committee out of hibernation, whether it's with existing members, in order, don't we have to do that in order for you to meet with them and to?
You did at the last meeting, I believe.
Did we take a vote on that? We did? Okay, never mind. Then they're out of hibernation. Second, I guess the second question, and this will be for the school committee to eventually decide on and to work with the building committee. Given the timelines that we're looking at, given some of the major, I mean, it's clear to me, some members may disagree, that we're not going to get both projects done. That's my belief. And given the timeline, say we get a high school approved, and that's finished in 2014. I don't even want to think about some of the conditions at this building that we'll be facing at that time. Be it the windows, be it the hot water heater, be it the septic system. And I guess my concern is, how do we move forward with those projects? And will some, if not all of those, be eligible for funding from MSBA if it's not a major building project? Even the projects such as making this school handicap accessible.
Well, I think we talked about that at the last meeting. We were talking about the large capital projects, and we took some of them off the list. So I think obviously if we can get funding, that would be fantastic.
That's my main question.
Once we make a decision which direction we're going in, if it's a new high school, because I agree with you, Mel, I don't think we're getting funding for both projects. Then we have to start to prioritize what the needs are in this building, and start moving ahead on those, you know.
Right.
I mean, the infrastructure needs are gonna come first probably, and then after that, you know, some of the other things. But I think that's gonna have to be like a long-term plan to get those things done.
Can we put both things into a pipeline, a building project and a capital project?
Right, that's
On a
the
separate
right
building.
question.
I mean, would we have to address the septic at the middle school in North Reading, or could we put that project in the pipeline as well as the building project? I know
think
they
we-
said just one,
I
but I
think
don't know
we
if
tried,
they.
but if we can't, we still have to move forward,
Oh, yeah, that,
you know, with some of these projects.
Because I know we did talk about this last time, but my concern is if we focus, I know we need to focus on one project, but there are a lot of issues at each school that need to be addressed.
But I think it's just the opposite. I think once you've focused on that project and you know that's the route we're gonna take, then you start making plans to do the other projects at the other schools.
Right.
Either through submitting them for funding,
Individual projects.
or trying to get funding through town meeting, through bonding, or whatever, to get them done.
The other question I have for Mr. Nelson is, what's the expected life of the modular classrooms that we have now?
10 years plus. I think we had to certify that they'll be in use for 10 or more years in order to get the bonding that we got as part of the acquisition process.